It is not the bottom. It is in fact the bottom teeth. Yes, you see how offended he was when he thought I was talking about his bottom. So those bottom tusks are called tushes or tushes, and they are razor sharp. He's been very irritating to poor old Senzo, was having to do some fairly extensive sort of twisting about. And the warthog has walked a substantial portion of this airstrip. We're on Chitwa, came along hoping to find, well, we didn't really know what we'd find. We found a nice warthog, so we'll enjoy him for a while, and then perhaps we'll move on to some Nyala down the way, and then we'll just have a quick pop on to Cheetah Plains and see if we can't find something there. Let me just get us into a nice position for this chap. There. That's better. He's certainly quite suspicious of us and our intentions. Got an itchy face, poor fellow. And then lovely sounds going around us. Beautiful sounds of hornbills. And that's largely it, really. Lots of hornbills calling. There's a real kind of peace around the morning. Bit of an air of anticipation that it might sort of warm up during the course of the day. Let's keep going backwards. Beautiful yellow flowers there, of course, of the Senna Petitiana, or the monkey pod. Let's keep going back. Now, many of you, of course, wondering where Timon, the meerkat, is. Well, you've just been with him, with Byron. The nearest thing we have to a meerkat here, of course, is the dwarf mongoose. Now, there are no meerkats here. I would be surprised, were we to actually find the place where the Lion King was originally set, I'd be surprised to find warthogs and meerkats. Meerkats, of course, are largely desert animals, or semi-desert. So perhaps Timon should have been a dwarf mongoose. Except, of course, no one knows what a dwarf mongoose is, and so therefore, well, we just create a story that isn't necessarily biologically accurate. We never get facts get in the way of a good story. That is the cardinal rule, I think, of Hollywood, isn't it? Oh, he's a wonderful fellow, actually. Now, Corio, you may ask, and well you might, why would an animal be born with warts? What are they for? They must have a reason. And they do. The reason, we think, is to protect the face when they're fighting. So those giant warts there, you can see, extend almost as far out as his tusks do. And what that does is allows for his eyes to be protected when he's sort of in mortal combat with another pig. Let's go around the other side and let's go forward with him. I think we should just keep following him. This is quite fun. I mean, hardly ever have a long warthog sighting like this. Normally they just run away, which I'm hoping this fellow won't do, unless, of course, Tundi comes rushing out of a bush to try and eat him. Then I suppose he can run away, but not fast enough to get away. Hello. Isn't he fun? And there the sun's just come out onto him, making him look very smart. I think it's lovely. He's still quite suspicious of why we would want to look at him. Warthogs, of course, they know that they are considered part of the ugly five, a detestable sort of category of animal, because there are, of course, no such thing as ugly animals. They're all beautiful in their own way. Well, we have to say that, don't we? But I do think he's quite fun. He thinks so too, that's why he's looking at us. But he is suspicious. He's not entirely sure why we would look at him, because he cannot remember the last time people spent any length of time having a look at him. Alrighty, well, we're going to leave this chap heading down towards the south. Where he's going is anyone's guess. Taylor apparently is now playing a game.
We are about to play a game, so pay very close attention as to what you are looking at. We have a crime scene over here, and now what I'd like to know from all of you is what has happened over here. Now this is quite tricky. This could be a number of different things, but I know all of you are getting too good at picking up on the tracks and signs of animals, so I thought that I would just sort of play it up a little bit. But you can definitely see something has gone on over here and ended basically where I am. A bit of a hole. So hashtag Safari Live with who do you think, what animal do you think is responsible for causing all of this, well, commotion down here on the ground. We've actually seen quite a bit of it, but this is the best example of it we've had so far. Like I said, it could be a number of difficult things. So quickly send your questions in. Not your questions, I'm asking the questions. Send your answers in, and hopefully we will have a winner. Right, while I let you, of course, gather your thoughts and start guessing as to what it could be that's done that. We're walking on one of the fire breaks at the moment, which is has been really quite interesting. Let's see if we can find any other tracks while you think. We won't go too far away as to anything else that's been around here. You can see that the termites have definitely been active at some point, but unfortunately their little holes now, unfortunately, they would have made a little temporary structure here, but I think it's all been squashed with all the movement. Now, Becca, you've said that it looks like something has been dragged. Unfortunately, Becca, you are incorrect. We'll have a couple more guesses before we get to the real answer. But no, nothing was dragged there. Can you believe it? See, I said to you, it's a tricky one. Ooh, we're getting closer. Boris, you've said it looks like something was digging. Perhaps a honey badger? Think bigger, much bigger than a honey badger. But we're getting there. You're correct. Something was indeed digging. But I'm going to tell you what I thought it could be. So let me actually demonstrate for you why I actually wanted to try and trick you. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. But initially, oh, hang on, we've got one more comment coming through. Lightning guy, you have guessed correctly, spot on. Well done, very, very well done. You've said it looks like an elephant dragging its feet. It was indeed. It was a combination of dragging its feet and digging. And what I thought a lot of you were going to say was perhaps that it was a rhino midden, because if you just look at these two streaks on the ground of the sand, most of you would know that if you've ever come on safari before and you've ever had a look at a rhinoceros midden before, when a rhino marks his territory, he'll spray up against vegetation very much like lions and leopards do, except he then drags his feet like this and almost leaves something quite similar. Obviously they'd be closer together, and they do that of course to get all that urine and the feces in the cracks of their feet, and that scent will then travel on. So yes, well done to everybody that did guess correctly and say elephant. It was a massive elephant bull playing around here. So I think he was obviously feeding. He pulled a couple of branches down on the road, which Rexon and myself actually picked up and moved off, and he's come through here, he's dug, this is most likely from him picking the sand up in the tips of his trunk and throwing it on the left hand side of his body and then throwing it on the right hand side of his body. So he was standing here perfectly. How cool is that? Isn't that amazing? And this is where he was digging to find all the soil. So that's what's so exciting about bushwalk, is you get to see all the signs of the different animals. So I hope you took a couple of screenshots for yourself to keep in your tracking books, or if you're making up your own one. Byron, however, has got something slightly smaller than an elephant.
Only slightly smaller, I suppose. Taylor, no, well, half the size. But you're right, a hippo. We're at our resident hippo in Twin Dams, and it's always here. It seems like it's very happy here at the moment. I wanted to ask. We got some comments, and I'm curious because someone said, kudos to Byron for finding the leopard. Where does kudos come from? And maybe some of our viewers can enlighten me a bit, because I don't know. And I know it is a word that's used a lot in the United States, but where does it come from? And what exactly does it mean? That's my question to you, if you don't mind me asking. Kudos. I was going to say no, it was not a kudo, it was a leopard. Oh dear. I think we should actually move on from the dam now. I was just hoping to bump into perhaps Hosan or Shingile. They do hang around in this area from time to time, but I think for some reason they've been spending a lot of time just further south of our boundary. So I'm not sure where they are, but I do think they come and drink around here quite a lot. But let's move on. We'll allow this hippo to enjoy the dam in peace, and we'll see what else we can find. Stick with us. I'm not sure, James, where did James go? James headed, he was on Chitwa, that's right. He went that way. So we both had a bit of luck this morning. Leopard and lion, both males. Both male presenters found male predators. It's not too bad. I'm going to drive, I'm trying to think, I'm going to cross the Mulwati, drive up on the other side of the drainage line. I'll go around rather. Signal drops a little bit down in this dip. It's such a beautiful morning, nice cool weather. You can actually see some blue skies starting to peek through. There we go. And I've always said this, that when guests ask me what is the weather going to be like today, I always say let's wait till about 8 o'clock. And 8 o'clock you can usually tell more or less what kind of day it's going to be. If it's going to be overcast for most of it, or if it is going to clear up. I find for some reason in this area that's generally the time of that the sun's high enough to kind of sort out all these little clouds. And by the sort out I mean it burns them off and they tend to disappear, and you have clear skies, or it's going to be a front that's moved in and sticks around for some time. Lot of tropical tent web spiders at the moment, and I think also because of all the dew and moisture we can just see them. From sleep, you say that the Greeks of old used to say kudos and give each other high fives. So you say, who was it, Mark Anthony or Cleopatra used to used to give it kudos, high five. I wonder. I wonder if James knows. I wonder if James knows where that comes from, or what it is, meant to be. I kind of understand the context, but I'm curious as to where it comes from. I don't know. We don't. It's definitely not a. It's not a South African thing at all. We don't. We just say, "Well done." walking around, and I wonder what her plans are for the morning, but she seems to have a creepy crawly. Oh dear, Taylor.
We have, and I'm quite surprised to see this particular type of creepy crawly. Let me start that again. I went to say Brian for a moment, and of course Brian is no longer with us. He's taken an absence of leave, but we've got Byron. Sorry about that, Byron. But yes, we have a caterpillar of some sort, and it is beautiful. I remember seeing them at the beginning of the year. We're seeing loads and loads of them. If you remember the sighting I had once with Nguhumas, where I had a caterpillar, well, crawl on my body, and then I tried to release it quite safely into the sighting, and it ended up getting caught. The branch got caught on the car, and then I flung it, and I thought I flung it to its death, but I didn't fling it to its death. I actually just flung it straight onto my neck, which I found just before the show ended. And this is exactly the same kind. One you would not want to have on your body, because as you can see, it is covered in long bristly hairs, and unfortunately that is no good for us. Those are there as a defense mechanism. They will break off, and they will cause you to itch and scratch like you have never felt pain and itchiness in your life, a combination of the two really. So don't touch any hairy caterpillars. They are no good. But how beautiful is this? Now it's sitting very still. I wonder if it's not because it is a bit chilly still and it hasn't just got enough energy to start moving yet. But it's exceptionally vulnerable sitting out in the open like this, because there's still a few cuckoos around. We're still seeing the Jacobin and the great spotted cuckoo, and they are experts at catching caterpillars. So this little fella better get a move on, and it's quite large too. Shall we use my hand as a scale again? I'd love to show you. This is the biggest one of this particular species of caterpillar that I have seen. It is very, very long. Now what you could do is you could probably allow it to walk on your hand and you'd be okay. The problem, however, comes in when the top side, so these top hairs, actually touch you. Those black ones, oh, they would make you itch very badly. Now I don't know, this could even be a moth, because I can't remember if we got a clear identification of this particular caterpillar, but I have since I've purchased quite a few different types of butterfly books from Australia. I got some new ones, so maybe they will have a picture in them of a larvae that looks similar to this, and we'll be able to figure out exactly which one it is. But isn't it stunning though? Blend in very well to a marula tree. Now, Eliana, you're wondering, and you're only 3 years old, I must mention that, if it would hurt to pet this caterpillar. It would indeed. So, Eliana, you wouldn't want to pet this one, so that's why I haven't actually touched it, because I love caterpillars. I put them on my face sometimes when I'm feeling silly, but this one, you want to leave on the ground. And I wonder if it hasn't come from the marula tree. If you just have a very quick look at its coloration, and then come and look at it, come and look at this massive marula tree that's right here. You see that? Almost uncanny how identical, what is wrong with identical is not even a word, how identical the sort of colors match, with the bits of the black, the darker colors even on the hairs on the caterpillar will match the darkened spots of bark on this marula tree. So that could be a clue, of course, to what that caterpillar is, and maybe a marula tree is the larval's host species. That's what it will be feeding on. But it's not just the caterpillar that I've got that's quite beautiful. I've actually just spotted something else in this piece of grass. If you look very carefully, I'm going to try and put the light on it. See, the sun's just coming through. You should start to see a glimmer of silver, and that is a dewdrop spider sitting in its own little web. Isn't it magnificent? With all of the dew just moving around now too. Not very big, quite small. And we normally see them sitting on the outskirts of the garden orb or golden orb web spiders. But they can also make their own webs, as you can see. Not a very big one, just in the inflorescence of the grass. But stunning. They're also known as silver flay spiders. That's another name for them. But that is really, really nice. And that's what we needed earlier when we had the grass funnel web spider. Is we needed all of this golden light to really illuminate the dewdrops on the web, and then as well, of course, the coloration of the spider is just magnificent. Pretty cool, eh? I think that's quite amazing. We're having lots and lots of luck this morning with the smaller things, and I think it's because I don't want to squash this caterpillar. I think it's just because, of course, all the rain that we've had has brought about this next bouts of life, which is fantastic. Right, and I was talking about birds earlier on, so before Byron's fly away, let's go and take a look at some guinea fowl.
Sure, Taylor, I don't think these guinea fowl are going to fly away. They've been sitting here for about 5 minutes. I think just warming up in the sun. Nice to see the guinea fowl. It looked like a lot of young guinea fowl there too. They're not the only ones enjoying the sun though, but yeah, they're definitely preening themselves, warming up, enjoying the sunlight. Haven't moved at all, but like I say, they're not the only ones enjoying the sun. We are too, and so are the little dwarf mongoose. Another little family of dwarf mongoose. Just over there, sunning themselves, cleaning themselves. Looked like some youngsters there earlier that I saw. They are very cute. Look at them cleaning that. Now also that cleaning and grooming will strengthen bonds within a group of mongoose. Do any of you know what a group of mongoose are known as? Craig, do you know? Not the plural of mongoose. A big family or big group. And some of you can double check me on this, but it's a... Well done, James, you are correct. It's a business of mongoose. I'm sorry, I didn't copy that, Megan. Can you just go again with that question, please? James, I'm not sure. I don't know much of the dispersal movements of mongoose. You asked, will the young male mongoose disperse with siblings or male siblings out of a family? And I'm not sure. I don't know. Like I say, I don't know much about the dispersal movements of mongoose. All I know is that they generally stay together within a group. Now, if I think of meerkats, for example, which I've kind of monitored a little bit closer than I have other mongoose species. Now, the meerkats, the males and the females all stay within the same group, family. But what does happen is there might be a male. He gets to a point where he moves off on his own and tries to either meet up with another group or another family, or just leaves that specific group if he's unable to mate with any of those females. Nice little view. Well, I think I'm going to move on again, but I'm going to drive around these little creatures, the mongoose and the guinea fowl. I'm not going to drive past and disturb them, so I'll drive around the other way. Now, our friend James has also managed to find some guinea fowl. James, do you know what kudos means or where it comes from?
Yes, I do know what kudos means. I'm not sure where it comes from, though. Sounds like it probably comes from Greek, but I might be entirely wrong. There is a little flock of guinea fowl there with some very little ones. That one is obviously, you can see it yawning there. It must be an exhausted mother or father. Probably has had no sleep whatsoever. And I was asking, I remember what it is. I was asking Senzo what a Guinea fowl is in isiZulu. Is it not Impangele? What's Impangele? Some deathly silence from behind me. and a thumb. Yes. Impangele. Oh, look at them, aren't they sweet? Now, although you can see there that they're much, much smaller than mum and dad, and they're eating the grass seeds there, they're picking them off the stalks, they're able to fly. They can fly even at that young age. And that, of course, and they've got very stout, strong legs, which means that even though they were born on the ground and born very sort of vulnerable, they are able to move and get away from predators almost immediately. Now they're fighting over a piece of dung, and so their mother is no doubt rolling her eyes towards the heavens as she thinks about the ridiculous nature of young creatures. Now, interestingly here, you will find much less, if you were to, let's pretend this was a flock of wild dogs, a pack of wild dogs, you would find the youngsters playing with each other. And in fact, if those were children, there'd be one pushing the other, one tripping the other, one slapping one over the head, the other pulling a pigtail or something like that. Lions would be doing the same, wild dogs would be doing the same, and birds not. They do not exhibit anything like the same propensity to play behavior that mammals do. And I was reading a little bit about that the other day, and while I've often said that the play behavior engaged in by mammals helps them to, or helps their muscles develop, and it helps them, their neurological systems to sort of develop properly, it also apparently plays a major role in sort of the setting of a hierarchy. And I wonder if the fact that these birds have to spend their lives walking around foraging and eating, if that isn't sufficient physical activity for their muscle and neurological development, and therefore the play behavior is not necessary for that, and of course they will end up as a pair. They will not end up in a sort of flock with a hierarchy, and perhaps because of that there is no necessity for them to engage in play behavior. I think it's quite interesting. Can anybody think of a bird species that does engage in play behavior? I don't know of one, but that's very difficult to think of a mammal species that doesn't. But those that are solitary definitely play less than those that are not. Little tracks all over the road here, and they're just picking the grass seeds, the last of the seeds, off the stalks. There they are. Disappearing into the Vernonia and amongst the Syncolostemum bracteosus. That's right, that's the purple and white flowers that you can see through there. That's such a pretty little scene, isn't it? A couple of hares' tails. Oh, that's beautiful. Isn't that lovely? Look at those colours. There's a hare's tail plant. And also a Parotis patens grass plant. Oh, that's interesting. Forest wanderers, apparently, you say that ravens and crows engage in play behavior. Youngsters, that's very interesting. Ravens and crows, well, we know, of course, that they are amongst some of the most intelligent bird species. There's also, did you see that purple plant? There was a purple plant there. Sorry, can we just quickly go back in there? Purple plant, just zoom in a little bit there, that I think is called a Periscaria limbata, or the knotweed. Yeah, there, that's it. I think that's the knotweed. Periscaria limbata. See what you think of that, Judy H. See if you think I'm right or wrong. While I do that, Judy H., I believe that Taylor has got something else to test you with. Periscaria limbata, the knotweed.
We do have a flower, and I'm actually not sure what it is. We'll have to try and figure out what it is. I did take a picture of it. I've just seen it sprouting up now, but what I have seen is lots and lots of elephant dung around here at the moment. There was an entire breeding herd, so not just that big elephant bull that we had seen digging about and throwing sand on himself, and Rexon was whistling just now, very quickly up ahead. So I wonder what he spotted as he walked past some very, very old elephant dung. But basically we're on the fire break now between Bivelshoek Cut Line. We've just passed Mvubu Road, and we're going to head down towards Shortcut Gallagher, and hopefully we're going to bump into this massive elephant herd. But this is what Rex was whistling about. There's actually a couple of things we can chat about here. We've of course got this African land snail, who I don't think is going to go anywhere very quickly. But how beautiful are these creatures, and especially to see them on bushwalk is something quite special, because we have got the advantage of getting down and low and bringing you those great camera angles of the snail. Now we need a fungi. Where's the fungi? Let me see if I can find one. I don't think it will eat it if I were to give it to it, though. I think it would probably just retract and retreat into its shell, as they do when they are frightened. But isn't it beautiful? And look at that, secreting all of that slime from a gland situated just at the base of their sort of foot, and that allows them to move quite swiftly, well, in terms of a snail pace really, and quite easily along all the different types of debris. But that is so cool. And this is a particularly big one too. Not the biggest, I've definitely seen much larger. We normally see much larger shells of the African land snail. But you better be careful, Sebastian. It's going to eat the camera. It's coming straight towards the camera. It's so cool. You're being charged by a stand your ground. Nobody move. Of course, these are the things we have to shout when you're being charged by an actual animal that would threaten your life. But something like an African land snail, well, that's not really going to bother us too much. How cool is that? Just also, you know what I love the most is the sort of grooves that it has on the foot itself. And the patterns are spectacular. And then of course the tentacles, the two pairs of tentacles. It's got the eyes and then the mouth tentacles, sensory nerves. I'm sort of always looking for something to eat. I'm desperately looking for a tiny little fungus. I want to feed the snail, but like I said, I don't think it's going to work. I just really want to see it so badly that I'd be naughty. But luckily for me, my temptation is stopped by the fact that there are no mushrooms around. Oh, this is pretty cool. Now I've just found something else too, in some very elephant dung. I want to draw attention away from the snail. Is look at this dung beetle and how it's covered in mites. Can you see that? Isn't that incredible? This one has got an infestation of mites though. It is normal for dung beetles to have a small amount of them, typically around the legs, and it's important for them to have those mites because of, as you've probably heard before, they do exude a substance, and without the mites constantly eating away at that sticky substance, it ends up clogging their legs up and preventing them from walking. But I think this one has got, like I said, an overpopulation of parasites, and I don't know how well it's doing. It doesn't look particularly healthy. Now, it shouldn't even be out just yet because it's still quite chilly, and unless you're a snail, this is quite funny. The snail is about to join the shot of the dung beetle. That is so cool. How is that? Now, it's not going to be interested in the dung beetle at all, as the African land snails are only eating vegetation, so from flowers to leaves, and I'm sure mushrooms as well, marula fruits. I think we've seen them eat a marula fruit once too. Yeah, so you're going to go and say hello to...
So cool, he's crossing the frame.
It's crazy. How rude is that though? And now everybody, unfortunately, you're going to have to wait patiently for the next 10 minutes before I can continue talking about the dung beetle. Yeah, that was me standing behind you, but how great was that? Oh my gosh, the snail got a fright. Its tentacles touched the piece of wood and it didn't like that very much and just sort of pulled its entire face back in. So now it's gone into its little protective shell. and it probably won't come out for a while, so I think we shall leave the snail. Oh, no, actually, I've spoken absolute nonsense. Must be a snail that's quite used to walking into all sorts of objects, because it came out relatively quickly. Perhaps it doesn't want to waste any time being out in the open on this fire break, because it could, well, something could come along and snatch that up. A bit of garlic, a little bit of butter in a pan. Delicious. But James has done quite a bit of driving today. He's managed to get all the way to Cheetah Plains.
Live. Hello everybody. We've got a small radio problem here because we're at Buff Pan, and we've come along here in the hopes of finding some sign of a leopard. And of course this is because we saw a leopard here once before, where those I nearly said guinea fowl, but they aren't guinea fowl. They are Egyptian goose, are walking across towards the water. And so henceforth, every time I come here, I will look in exactly the same spot for where I once saw Tommy, in the hopes that he would still be there. But he is not. So we'll just do a little link turn around here, see if his very pretty little spots aren't somewhere close by. And then we'll move on, have a quick skirt through the clearings before we head back towards the west and home. So we're on Cheetah Plains. Buff Pan, of course, is this waterhole. And it's been the source of some really nice sightings. We've had beautiful sightings of elephants here. Lovely baboons. Magnificent leopards. I think that's probably about the list of things we've had here. Very wet, much mud, and there's also has been a hippo for some time living around here, and we'll see if he's here as well. But again, one is struck by the length of the grass and therefore the difficulty of finding anything that isn't walking right on the road. Just stick our heads in here. Just stop here and have a listen. You can see the Egyptian geese across the other side there. And we'll just wait and see if the hippo doesn't pop its head out. There we are. They're going to have a little swim. Looking for algae and deliciousness to eat. And of course, well, while we search around here for a leopard, perhaps, Byron has managed to find himself, I'm trying to think of something original to say, but I cannot, so I'm just going to say that he's found an elephant.
That was original, James. But yes, I have. Look, a whole herd coming down to drink and play, and their babies. Oh, look, that little one just took a tumble in there, slipping on the mud. Oh, shame. Oh, this is fantastic. What a nice surprise. Now, I think for some reason, this one female is looking a little, not aggressive, just a bit tense. I wonder if or they were moving very quickly. I think possibly just excited to get down to the water. But now I don't understand why they would come to the edge of this steep embankment to try and come and drink here. That's unusual. I mean, they had water, but I think what's happened is there's a bull behind them. And I wonder if that bull isn't causing a bit of, not distress, but unease within the herd. Oh, there's definitely something going on. Look at that interaction. You see that male? The back there he comes. Walking through, you can hear the little ones were trumpeting. I was hoping they'd actually all come down and drink, but they've walked right past. Starting to warm up nicely. There goes that bull. It's a youngish bull, not a particularly big. Well, he is still big, but not a particularly old bull. I think he's going to turn into a rather big bull. Oh, it's really starting to warm up. Time for that little one. Sounds like it's got a sinus problem with that little trumpeter tried to give. There they go. So it's interesting that they didn't stop to drink. But again, you know, there's a lot of moisture around on all the vegetation that they are feeding on. So that's possibly why. Oh, but look at that little one. That's a very cute little elephant. Staying very close to the adults. Oh, they move very quickly through this area. So our timing was perfect to get to the dam. Because I think if we had been a few more minutes, I think we probably would have missed them. Just having a look at females watching us quite carefully. Smelling. A nice big female. Looks like quite an old female. Oh, there's lovely light coming through now too. Hear her communicating. That very low frequency grumble which they give, that vocalization. And then look, those little ones all turn and are heading back to the female. I wonder if they're going to want to walk past us. So Canadian Emily, you will get young males staying with the herd, obviously, but when they get to a certain age, they then, and Canadian Emily, just give me a second, I'd just like to move out the way for these elephants quickly. I'm just showing they want to walk past us, so what I'm going to do is back up a little bit. It looks like they want to head this way. Let's see, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop over here, give them some space, and see if they do decide to move on this way. But it's just, and it's not because they're aggressive at all, but again, you know, I've always said we need to be sensitive, and if I can see an animal wants to move in a certain direction, I'll move out the way for it. Just like that leopard did this morning. He turned, he came back towards us. Rather move out the way. There's no need to keep the vehicle there and see how close they can get, because you know, if the animals feel comfortable, they will walk past if they want to. So Canadian Emily, getting back to your question, the young males will stay within the herd up until a certain age. Then they get pushed out, or they leave, and they try and meet up with big dominant bulls that will probably teach them how to be successful and where to move around, and what areas and so on, where to look for food. But then every now and then you will get big males that come and join a herd. And the reason for that is they are looking to see if any females are in estrus and that they may potentially mate with. So that is what that is, or why that male is there. I think it's not often that you see a big male within a herd. We've seen the last week or 2 weeks, we've actually seen males within the herds. Now they don't have a specific mating season, but there's possibly just a lot of activity, a lot of males in must at the moment, out of summer, because there's a lot of good food, water, so ideal conditions for mating possibly. Rebecca, you asked, is it true that an elephant can remember a person by its scent? Rebecca, you know what? I've seen I suppose documentaries, you could call them documentaries, or shows on elephants, and elephants picking up scent and being able to find certain objects or certain people once they've smelt them. I would not be surprised if an elephant can remember the scent of something or someone that they've smelt. I'm almost sure of it. They're incredibly intelligent animals, and their sense of smell is so acute, so very, very good. Oh, there's an elephant that's come to drink just off to the right. There we go, there's another one. That one's having a bit of a drink. Sure, can you believe how it's warming up, Craig? Getting very hot. Well, these elephants have decided to now stand and wait. Oh, I don't know why that is. Again, you know, that's the wonderful thing about nature, is sometimes animals just do things and we don't know why. It's just nice to view and appreciate them, because we don't always have all the answers. They're wild animals, they'll do whatever they like. But have a look, these elephants are still just standing very still off to the side. I've given them space, so I think that's why they're just happy to stand and wait. I was hoping that they would decide to walk in this direction. I'm going to sit here a little bit longer with these large animals, but Taylor's got small little creatures to show you.
We have indeed, and that's what bushwalk is, of course, all about, is looking at the smaller things. Rexon has just grabbed my attention. He said that he's seen the coolest thing. Now we need to go to Rexon and find out what that cool thing is. What is it, Rexon? He's not telling me. He's waiting for me to come towards him and see if I can see what he's seeing. So the pressure is on. Monkeys. Dwarf Mongoose. Ah, there they are. Well spotted. I was looking in the tree, hoping it was going to be something dangling from the tree, but indeed it is one of the coolest things to see out here in the bush, and that is the Dwarf Mongoose. Now, of course, Byron put on a show for all of you today and trying to make their call and do all those crazy things, so we'll leave that for him to do. But they've just come out now. Finally, the clouds are starting to burn away, and as you can see, they're very happy to be sitting out in the sun, keeping nice and warm, just as those vervet monkeys were trying to do a little bit earlier. But now it is the right time, because both myself and Sebastian have had to delayer. We've had to take off of our jackets. It's obviously nice and warm now, which is really, really lovely. So that means that all the insects are going to start moving around. The animals that get a bit cold during the night are going to come out and sun themselves, just as we're looking at, really. But it's so funny that they're not bothered by us just yet. They're watching us. They're of course keeping an eye out, and I'm sure if we were to go any closer they'd probably move away, so we won't disturb them too much. But nothing is going to stop a dwarf mongoose sunning itself, unless perhaps a big eagle comes swooping over. Then that might well get them to race back down to their burrows, or if we start walking straight towards them. Remember, we are of course predators too out here, so they will be quite wary of us. Should we try it? Should we see if they're going to react? I might as well. I'm not too worried about them disappearing down into their hole, because we will have to walk past them anyway, and they will just pop up. So let's see how close we can get before they disappear. So I'm going to keep walking towards them. I'm almost going to pretend like I'm not going to them at all. We'll just la la la. Not bothered. I think we can get to the silver cluster leaf and we might be able to stop. So I'm just going to look. Ah, very nice. It's okay. Hello, guys. One got a little bit of a fright and darted off, but didn't go down into its burrow. Actually just moved towards the sort of shrub areas. There's all these little plants that are growing, and they've just disappeared behind there. But there's one starting to pop out now, and if you look very carefully you could actually see a little animal pathway that they've been using. I can see clearly from here how they've disturbed quite a bit of the soil as they move around. Now, I don't think that this termite mound is very active anymore. It's covered in vegetation, and it's actually really good for these mongoose, because now they can just sit quite close to the mound, sunning themselves without too much worry, because it's only about half a meter that they have to dash to find sufficient cover. So that's really nice. What a really, really good spot. A couple of jackalberries and quarry trees growing out of it. Let's see if we can see them again. They might be a bit scared of us. Now, Shansign, I think that's the name. You're wondering if mongoose click. Oh, there they are. There's one just poking its head out now, just at the top. I haven't heard them click. Oh, do they stink? Ah, not click, stink. I've never got close enough to a mongoose to smell it. However, they do have anal glands, so I can only imagine that they won't be too pleasant smelling, but I don't think as stinky as hyenas and wild dogs. There we go. Now they're starting to relax, and there's even one popped its head out where we first saw them, just on the right-hand side. So that's quite cool that we're only about 15 meters away from them, and they're quite comfortable with us. This is really cool. So I don't think that they stink too much. I didn't have it. It was a pet that somebody had that they didn't want anymore. It was a small grey mongoose, and they actually look quite similar to the dwarf mongoose, just a little bit bigger. And we ended up rescuing it. This is on a game reserve, of course. It went to the volunteers, and that didn't work out so well. So it came and spent its life in the rangers village. And the one day, this slender grey mongoose, the small grey mongoose, decided to follow me around. So as I was sort of taking my laundry to the laundry, this mongoose would follow me, running at my feet. I went and then washed my car. It was in the cruiser, making lots of noise and probably chewing things it was not supposed to be chewing while I was washing the car. Then I parked it and wiped it down, and it ran all over us, and it didn't smell very nice, and it was constantly sort of marking on everything in my room. So everything smelled a little bit like urine, which was not great. So I would not suggest having these guys as pets. They're just cute to look at them like this, as are most of the animals. It's better to just leave them out in the wild. But what we did do is we ended up releasing it, and it lived its life outside. Now, Rebecca, you're wondering and if they've got red eyes. They do indeed have sort of reddish eyes, like the fork-tailed drongo. Not as extreme, though, and it matches their little red noses that they have, too. And they are very, very sweet and ferocious predators, too. I'm glad that it was a small grey mongoose that I had and not the dwarf mongoose, because I don't know why. I just think the smaller the animal is, the sort of more feisty they are. They have to compensate to try and scare off something that could potentially sort of harm them. So you normally see smaller predators sort of reacting. But I'm blown away right now as to how relaxed they have become, because some of them have started grooming each other. So that just shows you they've now. Well, there's one watching us, but the others are not particularly bothered, and they're so comfortable that they're happy to go about their sort of day. There's a whole lot. There's probably about 10 of them or so that live in here, but I don't want you to disturb them for too much longer, so let's leave the mongoose. Bye, mongoose. Thank you for being so nice. And it's always nice to have short, sweet encounters like this with animals, especially on foot. So hopefully the next time we come through here and they are still living in the same mound, they'll be quite relaxed with us right off the bat, and we'll be able to spend a bit more time with them. So that's really cool. Very, very happy with that. Now, James is, of course, scouring around on cheetah plains. He hasn't found any cheetah, and he hasn't found any leopard yet. Let's go and see how he feels about his lack of animals.
I'm afraid all I heard of that link was live. So I don't know what Taylor said. I've no doubt it was pithy and very amusing, but I'm afraid I cannot contribute to the joke. Oh, how do I feel about my lack of animals? Thank you, Taylor. It wasn't pithy or vaguely amusing. I feel sad, hurt to the core of my being, because really there is nothing here on Cheetah Plains at all. There was at one stage a leopard and a hyena, and in fact I'm going to do something illegal now. We're going to look at a wasp, but it's on Nkoro. There it is. Can you see it, Senzo? I'm trespassing now. Can you see it? There it goes. You got it. That's a wasp on Nkoro, everybody. It's the only living thing that is other than vegetation that is on the Cheetah Plains and Coral area. So we've had to resort to staring at a wasp on Coral. And it's, well, I don't know what it's doing. It's looking for something to eat, I suspect, or lay its eggs in. But what I wanted to show you here was the tracks of a large male leopard heading into Ngoro. I suspect this is quarantine. Let's look up the road, see that he isn't there. There it is. 1, 2, 3 lobes at the back. 1, 2, 3, 4 pads at the front. He's come here, he's marked this tree, and he's carried on into Ngoro, I think. Yeah. Cheetah Plains, really, I must say, other than for the knotweed, which we found, which I'm not sure I've spoken about before, which I'm afraid I know some of you will be interested in, but many of you would rather see quarantine than a knotweed. I'm not sure that there are any that wouldn't, actually. Well, other than the knotweed, not much is going on here on quarantine. So I'll have to get back home and apologise to Byron and Taylor for failing to contribute sufficiently to the drive. I'll have to cover myself in sackcloth and put ashes on my head. I did see, I will tell you, a Namakwa dove, which was quite nice. I also saw a double-banded sandgrass, which was also quite nice. And we saw very tiny little francolins, just this big. But you were looking at elephants at the time. What have you seen, Senzo? A dove. I think it was a dove. Djuma. So we'll continue searching faithfully until we come up with something, or until the end of the drive comes, whichever comes first. We've checked all the favourite haunts of the leopards we know of this area. Nothing there. Oh, there's a squirrel. It's run away. Let's see if we can't find it up in a tree somewhere here. Squirrel, are you here? No. Michael, you're wondering about the most social animal we have here. Well, there's one right on the road just in front of us. You've already had 3 or 4 sightings of this animal today. That, of course, is the Dwarf Mongoose. This one is in full charge. Stay back, everybody. Fear not, I will protect you. They are definitely some of the most social animals out here that we get. Taylor is probably the most social animal that we get out here. In fact, Byron is probably the most social animal, followed by Taylor. And then they are closely followed by the Dwarf Mongoose. And they're all around us here. They're on the road, they're off to the side, making their little calls that apparently Byron was failing miserably to make earlier on. I wouldn't even attempt it. This one is going to find himself in a fairly substantial automotive accident fairly soon. We probably won't move just yet. But there's some grooming each other on the ground there. Some mutual grooming and cleaning. That little jerk there of the camera was Senzo having a sneeze. Bless you, Senzo. That is the thing with being live, you see. If you weren't live, well, you just sneeze and carry on your shot. Can you hear them around us? Just making a little call. I just wonder why they've become so confiding today. 3 or 4 sightings. Of course, I'd love to think that they were only coming towards us because of the noise I was making, but so many have come this way. Oops. That's because I sat up. Another one coming out to the left. As I keep saying, you know, if we had a dedicated crew to sort of stay with these chaps, I'm pretty sure you could tell a meerkat manor story in the same way as it was done in the Kalahari. Yes, well, I am. I'm speaking mongoose. I speak Dwarf Mongoose. There are 76 dialects of Dwarf Mongoose in the world. I speak 54 of them. I'm working on the others. They're quite complicated languages, you know, sort of about 20,000 words each. But I've managed to do it through, you know, the force of my will and just general talents, really. Will, I'm obviously talking complete nonsense. You just have to make a slight squeaking noise for these things and they come out. And I'm not sure why that is. But if you listen carefully, they are making all sorts of noises, from the squeaks and squiggles to... It's an interesting call. You don't often hear that one. Yes, Larimer, you say I'm a mongoose whisperer. Well, I'd like to think I was, but probably nothing like as skillful as Taylor or Byron, both of whom have had wonderful mongai sightings today. There were also some southern black tits that just flew overhead, and where southern black tits are, there are normally lots of other birds. There are indicators of bird parties. Yes, and in this tree there is a small bird party going on, but they're so high up I don't think we're going to see them. No, Senzo, I think we're wasting our time there, I'm sorry. There are a couple of starlings. It's a brown ivory, and I wonder if there aren't a few fruits in it, maybe. I can't see any. Well, there's a starling at least. There we go. Cape glossy starling. How do we know it's a Cape glossy starling and not a greater blue-eared glossy starling? Well, we heard it saying. There, you just heard it calling. And they make two different calls. One is, well, this one makes that call, sort of swizzling call, which I like to imagine as it's saying, Cape glossy starling, Cape glossy starling. Whereas the greater blue-eared glossy starling, which looks almost identical, says, wah, wah. I like to think of that as blue, blue. So that's how you know. One tells you, I'm a Cape glossy starling. The other one says, blue. I've never found that to help anyone else in the whole world, so maybe it'll help you. But that's how I remember it. Alrighty, let's move on from the Cape glossy starling, saying Cape glossy starling, Cape glossy starling. The sun's come out, and it's turned rather pretty, so there are lots and lots of birds around. And the best way, of course, to look at birds is to do so with a cup of morning coffee.
It is indeed, James. It is indeed. I've got my trusty flask. I must be honest, I'm really happy with my flask. And it's nice to actually have a cup of coffee. Like I said, we do it with our guests. You stop and have a little cup of coffee. I was going to stop at Buffelshoek Dam, but that's when all those elephants arrived. They moved off quite quickly. What had happened was another bull came into the area, young bull though, and basically just ran and chased them, and the whole herd disappeared into the bush very, very quickly. Hold on, I can hear some interesting birds. There's a beautiful magpie shrike up in the top of that tree there. Let's see what other birds we can find around here. Oh, what is it? A starling shouting at us. A starling has just made a lot of noise. Hang on, is it? Let's have a look here. Wait. I'm just going to reverse. I thought I saw some movement in that tree. Now it could very well have been a mongoose or what's that? There's a grey go-away bird sitting just in the middle of that thicket over there. In this little tree right close to us, Craig, there. Right here.
In the center?
Yeah, in the center. So go left a bit, left. There you just see him move into the. He's moving in through the back there. It's a bit difficult to see. There, no. He's right in the center of that tree, a grey go-away bird. But I think perhaps that was what the. Yeah, don't worry, Craig. I think he's disappeared deeper in there. I think that's what that starling actually called out. Maybe the lory was just the grey go-away bird was still just very close, too close to. Oh, there's a beautiful bird in the center of that the tall acacia, Craig. You can just see in the middle. Go straight, left a bit. Hold on, where is it? It's still there. Still there. Just go. There he is. Well done, Craig. That's difficult to see, but that is. Oh, there it moved. Can we still see it? That is called a scimitar bull. Now there's those are little weavers around there now, I think. Where did that bird go? I think all that movement are the weavers on the other side. Yeah, it is through there. There it is. You can just see it moving. Hopefully we can see its beak. It's got a beautiful curved beak. It's called a common scimitar bull. There it is, just preening its feathers, cleaning its feathers. It looks very similar to the green wood hoopoe. Oh, there it goes. It's just flying off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a picture of it quickly, just so you can see what this bird looks like. Hang on. What? Sorry, I updated this app, so it now looks very different. And why can't I do that? Oh dear. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on. Anyway, can you see that? Sorry, Craig, the light is a bit bad, isn't it? There we go. That is the common scimitar bull. Very long curved beak. Feeds on insects, and flying insects mostly. There goes the grey go-away bird. Just flew past us. So that was what that was. Nice to see the common scimitar bull. Why isn't that? Oh dear. Sometimes updating apps doesn't work very well. Escargot, you mentioned that blue doesn't seem to be a very common color in nature. Why do some birds display blue, and also the monkeys? Well, the monkeys have the blue around their genitalia, and that I think is it's purely a sign to attract a mate. So for the males to look more attractive to the females. With the birds, a lot of the blue that we see, like with those scimitar bulls and also the starlings, it's the iridescence, the color that the light gives off in the feathers. That's basically just light reflecting through air within the feathers. But it's, you know what, blue is actually quite common with a lot of birds. Little blue waxbills. If you think of the lilac-breasted rollers, a lot of the kingfishers, they've all got blue in them. So it is common within birds, but within the animals not necessarily, and I think it's because it stands out so much. The blue within the birds is to obviously attract mates, and birds obviously rely a lot on their color and the plumage to attract the mate. The males are more colorful than the females, whereas with animals it doesn't necessarily mean that. And the thing we need to remember is animals will stand out a lot more, I think, with the blue although again we don't know what shades of color the animals actually see, and I think possibly because they don't see as much color as what we do, those bright colors aren't necessary. I think so, Escargot. It's that would be my guess, is because of the color spectrum that the animals see. There's no reason to see these bright colors. Usually attracting a mate is just the biggest and the strongest. That's all you have to be out here, the biggest and strongest, and you should attract the mate very easily. Now Taylor apparently has a big track she'd like to show you.
Not quite as big as an elephant's footprint, but it is indeed of a lion. And you saw a beautiful Mfumo with James at the beginning of the show. Now I haven't quite worked out whose tracks these are, because they're coming from the north and going south. We're on shortcut Gallagher at the moment. So it could be Mfumo's, because we did start to hear a lot of that rumbling, and it's quite funny. And if for those of you who have been watching for a couple of years and watched the Birminghams grow, you'll know that Mfumo doesn't like to just let out a roar at first go. He sort of does these, and then that's it, nothing, and he'll go quiet for a while, and then again, then nothing, and then eventually he builds up and he does a massive big roar, which is always quite funny. And that's what I'd heard at about 4:15 this morning. I heard this, and I sat up in my bed going, is that a lion? Then it was quiet. Went back to sleep again, heard it again, and then eventually by 4:30, it took him 15 minutes to build up, and he did the most massive roar that I swear my windows were vibrating. It was quite amazing. So I think that this could be him, especially coming down towards the drainage line. The sound, of course, will amplify. Here's another big track. This is quite a nice one too. It will amplify, and then of course that might have been why the windows were shaking. But I think as we move closer to the camp, we'll follow these and see where exactly he was standing, because it felt as though he was sitting at our dinner table in the middle of the courtyard roaring. That's how loud and how close it was. And Sebastian's nodding his head vigorously, going, yep, that's exactly what it sounded like. So let's keep following these tracks. Let's see what else we can find. There was also lots and lots of hyena tracks coming through here too. Got a question coming through from Skip. Now, Skip, and some of you may recognize that name, but just in case you're unsure, Skip is only 12 years old and he asks us lots and lots of questions, so we're happy to have you. Now, you're wondering how large is the Birmingham Boys territory. Skip, it's really big. It's on Little Gowrie, on Arathusa, all the way to Cheetah Plains, Buffels Hook, Torchwood. They basically cover most of the northern Sabi sands, even to Hoffman's and Nets, which is quite spectacular. Now, one lion would not be able to do that on his own, but of course, thankfully, the Birmingham coalition consists of 4 male lions, and they're able to, of course, spread out and cover more ground, tend to more prides of lions, the females, which is really nice. So, in terms of size, I would say their territory must be well over 25. Are you smelling something? Ooh, so Sebastian's smelling popcorn, but we'll get to that now. We'll see if we can find any tracks. So I reckon, I'd say about maybe 30,000 acres, maybe just less than that, say between 25 and 30,000 acres of land. I'd say that's roughly the size of the territory of the Birminghams. I'm not entirely sure how big each of the properties are. I only know a couple of them, so I'm just sort of give or taking. But it's relatively big, and we're quite lucky. We deal with a thing called Panthera. So basically it's a carnivore research project, or rare species too, and every sighting that we have of the Birmingham Boys, of the Nkuhuma Pride, the Sticks, any of the leopards, even the southern ground hornbills and things like that, we actually record that data, and then what they do once a month, they put it all together and they'll do lions. So they'll do coalitions, they'll just do male lions of the entire Sabi Sand, which is 60,000 hectares, and you can see exactly where they've been traversing, and the Birminghams have got a large portion of the northern Sabi Sand. Remember, they even sometimes pop in to the Kruger National Park with the Torchwood Pride too. So it's very, very big. Now, just a moment ago, Sebastian went, and put his nose towards the sky, not because he's feeling posh, but because he's, of course, smelt something. And I always find it funny, we as humans, we really have to sort of sniff and point. It's quite funny how what we have to do to get a decent smell. Now, I haven't seen any leopard tracks around here. There's only the lion that has walked here, so it could have been a genet that's around here. Now, Skip, you were wondering if leopard urine smells like popcorn, what does lion urine smell like? Well, at the beginning of the show, we had actually found a spot where Mfumo had marked his territory up against a tree quite close to the DRC. I think that rhymed unintentionally, but anyways, and a little bit poetic this morning. And I smelt it. I couldn't smell anything. Luckily, I have not been sprayed with lion urine. I hope that day never comes. So I don't know. To me, it doesn't really have too much of a smell. Does lion urine have a smell to you, Sebastian? It's. I suppose maybe it depends on what they eat. That could change the smell, change the scent of the urine. But today, nothing in particular. Doesn't even really smell like cat's urine either. But anyways, we'll have to keep working. I'll keep my nose up against the tree, smelling the lion urine, and maybe one day I'll be able to give you an answer to that, Skip. However, we've gone from seeing loads of mammals, and well, James has managed to find all the reptiles this morning.
Well, yes, there's one more reptile. That is, of course, the water monitor that lives around here. He's a pleasant fellow. We've seen him many times before. Yes, I know. Can you hear me, Megan? Is our sound on? Is my sound on?
Okay. Alright, we've managed to find the giraffe that we've been looking for. It's just off to the side. There it is. Now it's moved right up. Apparently it was near the dam, Vuyatela Dam, but it's moved up into the clearings above camp. That's a beautiful male. It almost looks like it's cleaner. I wonder if the rain hasn't got something to do with that. Not that it was dirty before, I suppose. Let me move forward for you, Craig. Hold on. It's strange weather. The weather, it seems to warm up a lot, and there's still some clouds around. Warms up a lot, and then when we drive, then the temperature drops again and it gets quite cool. Beautiful male. Some oxpeckers sitting on him, and again this lovely light. There the oxpeckers. It's going to move behind some trees again. Hold on, I'm going to move forward again. There he is. Oh, that's a lovely shot of him next to that apple leaf. That's a tree that he's standing in front of. Apple leaf. There he goes. What a great morning. I really enjoyed this morning. This morning's drive was a lot of fun. Exciting and fun from the word go. Hope you all enjoyed it too. So Canadian Emily, the giraffe they're not necessarily solitary. It's not unusual to find a big male by himself though, but he will meet up with females or other males. The giraffe social structure is quite random. There's no strict social structure. Usually, obviously, the females and the youngsters stay together, but the males move around. Sometimes by themselves, sometimes in groups, sometimes with the females. And also the thing with giraffe, because they're so tall, they do occasionally spread out in an area. So we might not necessarily see all of them, but they can see one another because they're so tall, so they will be able to spot one another. And the theory is that those white ears also stand out quite a lot, so that they're able to spot one another from a distance. But like I said, there's no strict social structure. It's not unusual to see a giraffe by itself, but you also get them in groups or journeys, a journey of giraffe. So it all depends. Now, James was trying to chat to Dwarf Mongoose earlier, but he didn't have any luck apparently. I wonder if he's managed to make friends with the new little creature he's found.
I think little about this creature, and I must apologize. The last time you came to us, I don't think there was any audio. You couldn't hear us talking, so I do apologize for that. I'm not sure what happened. But there we have the same, very same, well, now with his head up, I suppose, water monitor. Now, we had this thing 2 days ago on a branch not too far from where he's sitting now. So this is his wont, obviously. This is where he likes to be. And I wonder if it isn't the same chap that sometimes heads all the way up twin dams. Look at his tongue sticking out. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, I wonder if he spotted something he's going to try and catch. Because there is a water monitor that walks from here all the way up Twin Dams Road to Djuma Dam quite regularly, and you find his tracks going. And this is a big water monitor. I'd say he's at least 4 feet long. Isn't he wonderful? I wonder if he spotted a bird or something he'd like to eat. They're almost exclusively carnivorous, I think. Powerful legs, a big slapping tail. And James Richard, yes, very droll. You say this water monitor is quite the tree hugger. He certainly is. He does a lot of tree hugging, and now he's doing a bit of climbing as well. Come on, up you go. Oh, he looks like he's doing this in a sort of painful and slow way, but he isn't. He'll shoot up that tree faster than you and I could come down it. And I wonder if it isn't because he's either found something that he wants to have a go at a little bit further up, or perhaps that's just a slightly more comfortable position. How it could be, I'm not sure. But he's got his blackish back to the sun to absorb some heat before he heads back into the chilly water. He's sitting in what is probably the very coldest spot on Djuma. So that is the lowest point, pretty much where that tree's growing, the lowest point on Djuma. Well, no, that's not true. That's one just slightly lower in the drainage line, just to behind him, basically. But that's pretty much the lowest, and so he lives in a fairly chilly spot, and I would say that it's probably at least 5 or 6 degrees Celsius colder in this area than it is in the other parts of the world. Now, Forrest, you want to know if we get Komodo dragons here, because this chap looks like one. He does look like one, and he's not actually that distantly related to a Komodo dragon. But he isn't a Komodo dragon. Komodo dragons are found only, ironically, on the island of Komodo. And that is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in the Indonesian archipelago. And I mean, those things, Forrest, are at least probably 6 or 7 times the size of this. I mean, this chap is 4 feet long if you stretch him all the way out. But you'll find Komodo dragons are probably at least 6.5 feet long from tip to tail. And they're much, much wider and much heavier. So I would put his weight at probably about 10 kilos or so. No, maybe a bit more. Maybe 15 kilos, so maybe 40 pounds. And I think you'll find Komodo dragons substantially heavier than that. Yes, that's what I said. You can see him looking at me. Now, Will, you say, does anything hunt these lizards? And the answer is quite a lot, actually. Leopards will eat them. Certainly, especially young leopards. We've seen Hosana and Shongila, our 2 young leopard friends, 15 months old now. That was yesterday, they were 15 months. No, it was today. Is it today? Is today the 2nd? No, it's the 3rd. Yesterday they were 15 months old, and they have both eaten water monitors. They're a great favourite, well, more its cousin, the rock monitor, a huge favourite of the Marshall eagle, which is the biggest eagle species we get here. And so they eat them. Lions will eat them. Crocodiles will eat them. You'll find, I suppose, there would be any number of birds of prey, if they could get them, would eat them. And once they get to this size, they're pretty safe from the attentions of anything but the mammalian predators. And crocodiles, of course. So, I mean, if a hyena could catch one, it would almost certainly eat it, as like I say, as would a lion. Python also might have a go at them, you know. Lauren, I'm not going to be facetious, although it's very tempting with this answer. You say, what's the difference between a water and a rock monitor? The rock monitor is actually got a much heavier head. He looks like he's got a sort of Roman nose. This one's got a very streamlined nose. The rock monitor doesn't. The rock monitor also doesn't have those lovely sort of yellow and golden colours on him. He's a much more uniform, or he's a mottled grey colour, but he doesn't have quite the same striking coloration as the water monitor. Then obviously their habitat is different. A rock monitor can go in the water if it wants to, but it will normally be in tree holes, sitting on trees in this area, yes, sometimes on rocks, but this chap will always be around water. The rock monitor is potentially, I believe, slightly larger as well, but you wouldn't notice a difference in size. Now you can see that this chap's got a very pointed head, and the rock monitor's got a much more rounded sort of Roman snout. You can see his ears there listening, of course. He does have nostrils, but their function will largely be performed by his forked tongue, of course. I thought he was going to climb all the way up, but I think maybe that tree's just a little bit spiky on his belly. Oh, and look at the water lily in the background there. Sorry, last zoom in there, if you wouldn't mind, Sensor. Can you see the beautiful blue water lily just to the top left-hand side there? Gorgeous. Very nice. Nymphea species. Well, that's going to be the last that you see of me today. Let's head across to Byron to close the show with a beautiful giraffe.
Well, thank you very much, James. And we do still have this lovely giraffe here. Now, some of you were asking for a tip of the day, Byron's tip of the day. I'm trying to think. I think maybe it's linked to this morning. When you're out on safari, and even if you're with your guide or not, and don't be afraid to just stop and listen to the bush at times. I think that's a very important lesson to be learnt in the bush, is stop, listen, and things will start happening around you. Often you'll find predators or whatever you might be looking for just by listening and taking some time to appreciate what else is around you. So I think listen to the bush, and that's how we did find that male leopard this morning. Also, technically, how we found the lion this morning. We heard him calling, and we headed out having a look for him, and James eventually found him. So listening to the bush is important. So if you do stop and just listen, things might happen for you, or might happen close to you. It's a bit of a bush tip of the day. It's been a really lovely morning. And some elephant, and James with the lion, we had the leopard. So there was a lot going on, and the giraffe just seems to be disappearing behind the trees. So I really hope you've all enjoyed the morning with us. Sorry, there was a question coming through, but unfortunately it's been cancelled. Maybe a long question. But thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Hope you've all enjoyed it. It was a really great morning. A lot going on. It's going to be a very warm day, I think, today, which will be very nice. And we may get some more activity around the waterholes a little bit later for our sunset safari. So thank you very much again to James, and who was with James this morning on camera? Dave? Senzo. James and Senzo, and then Taylor and David, and to the ladies in the final control. And again, a big thank you to all of you for your wonderful questions and comments. We'll see you on our Sunset Safari. Goodbye. See you soon.